Hello, everybody. We are going to be talking about a couple different things today. And we have Asma, who's going to be joining us shortly here, as well as Nicole Hawkins, who specifically works with Dr. Abdel Abu-Warda. Excuse me. So in this live, I'm only going to be accepting Asma and Bullet Bunny, who can jump into the live, and they're going to share their perspectives and what they've got going on with us. Request, there we go. Hello, everybody. Hi, Ayat. Excuse me. Hello.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay, given the circumstances. Right. How are you holding up?
It's kind of touch and go. I go through moments of severe panic and then kind of baselining into feeling okay. It's a lot of utilizing my coping skills to continue to remain stable and feeling okay. How about you? How are you managing with all the news from last night?
It's just another day, I guess, for us. We set a precedent, and now we are repeating what used to be horrific news.
Right.
Hey, Nicole.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome.
Good. Well, I don't know why we're asking those questions. I think we all know how we are.
Yeah, I think it's still a nice courtesy, kind of add some stability to what we talk about and what we do and everything too. So for everyone that's joining, I would love to kind of do some introductions so that everyone knows everyone. I'm sure everyone knows everyone already, but just for the sake of posting this later for everyone to review for information. So Asma, if you would like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work that you do as a therapist and then the work that you've been doing with the organization you're helping with.
Sure. My name is Asma. I am a social worker and a therapist. I'm currently not working. I was on an extended maternity leave. Then I did not go back to work because of the genocide. Being active takes, my whole time. I am a volunteer with Abandon Biden, and I'm doing some personal, things to try to help people in Gaza. Like I'm volunteering to provide psychological support. I helped evacuate a child called Jude. I'm trying to do a little bit of what I can help with.
Thank you for the evacuation with Jude and helping him and his dad get established. That was so wonderful for you to do, and thank you for all of the volunteering that you are doing as well. I know we've touched base a little bit here and there about having the organization that you've been working with, and they're doing amazing things. Nicole, could you give us a quick introduction about you and the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, hello. So my name is Nicole. You may know me on Instagram as Bullet the Bunny. I am an artist and a community organizer. I work on the leadership team of Project Watermelon. And specifically, Dr. Abdel Wahab Abu-Warda is my friend. And he and I sponsor his GoFundMe campaign and have been becoming sort of his little PR rep. Although I'm very uncomfortable with that. But anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much who I am. Oh, I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I am trying to coordinate efforts in the Southeast as well, although it's a different political landscape. But I am also a part of, or let me rephrase, I also agree very much with the Abandon Biden campaign.
I see Greg in the comments, and he is suggesting to join us. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Oh, I don't see him listed in the requests. Could you request again?
You can invite him, by the way.
Oh, I can. Okay. Where is he?
Technical difficulties.
While we're doing that, let's go over some etiquette. If you guys find anybody in here who is a Zionist and saying a bunch of evil shit, please message us repeatedly in the comments to let us know that we need to have them removed, and we will do so.
Looks like Greg joined the chat here.
Yes, just got him in. There we go. Hey, Greg,
Okay, cool.
welcome.
Hi.
We're
Thanks
Greg.
for having
just
me.
doing introductions, so if you want to, I'm sure everyone knows who Greg is, but if you want to just give a quick introduction about what you do, what you're doing.
Okay, yeah, my name's Greg Stoker. I'm a veteran activist, and I'm been filling a military niche when it comes to talking about what's going on in Gaza, and basically just systematically trying to break down the propaganda, which is just genocidal, enabling lies. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for that brief and very clear introduction. Yeah. I'm excited to have all of you here so we can have a really well-rounded conversation about what's going on. First thing to talk about, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the bombing of Al-Shifa from last night. I think for me, I was in the middle of picking up groceries and felt like I just should not be picking up groceries anymore because of what was going on. It's very difficult to manage functioning as a human that's not in this, and then functioning as a human watching your friends and loved ones that are going through this. So, Greg, give us your thoughts on what this bombing of Al-Shifa means and could mean, and how it might change the landscape of what's going on and the work that we've all been doing.
I mean, it probably signals going to be a ramp up in. They're going to re-escalate in hostilities. Netanyahu said today that they're going to move forward on the assault on Rafah. So, yeah, I think that's what it signals. It also signals that they're still trying to reinforce the human shield narrative, because that's what it is. I mean, I've been looking at propaganda videos on their Telegram channels all day. Of them like engaging people like Hamas inside Al-Shifa hospital. There was no engagement. It was just all staged very clearly. So yeah, they're just trying to displace all the people that are sheltering there, because I keep trying to tell people this, that let me see. Oh, is there am I having sound issues?
No, I don't
No.
think so.
No.
Oh,
No.
okay. All right. I just see some of the comments. Okay. So, yeah, conventional weapons will never be able to wipe out an entire population. First of all, the mental health aspects of the troops, always catastrophic. We saw this with like the SS brigades in Poland. They started drinking themselves to death and then killing themselves and stuff. So,
Right.
they need to be able to maintain the pretense that they're not actually doing this. That, so one way to do that is through hunger or famine, disease, and forced labor, forced marches, forced relocation. So the Al-Shifa hospital is that, like, how many thousands of people had to relocate out into the rubble?
So
Right.
several, and so there have been. I'm sorry. Is that okay if I jump in
Yes.
here? Okay. So, Dr. Abu-Dahab is on the ground. He's one of 5 surgeons who was left at Al-Shifa. If I know we've got some folks in the chat, if you guys wouldn't mind to link his IG down here, you can see he and I just posted about the last surgery that he was able to do. When I spoke with him a couple of hours ago, he told me that from speaking with the other folks who had been working in the hospital, that to his knowledge, everyone that he's aware of had been since released by the IOF, and that that Al Jazeera had also been in contact with the journalists they were trying to get free. But yes, to piggyback on what Greg is saying, there has not been anyone in this hospital. There's not anyone in that hospital who's not starving to death trying to save other people. Let me put it that way. Dr. Abu-Dahab has been on many, many interviews and lives with Mark Hill, with Daniel Mate, and whenever this question comes up, he's not seen anything. And he's been working there for 5 years. So it is absolutely an absolute distract technique. It's a narrative that they are building. There was only there are only a little over 200 total employees of Al Shifa, which used to be the largest hospital in the area. Until yesterday, the hospital was officially collapsed and had reduced to 5% capacity. They had 3 OR rooms, 5 ICU rooms, and everyone else was being received on the pavement outside. The hospital has been home to between 3 and 8,000 people just seeking shelter for quite a while. And again, Greg, I'll get your opinion here, but from my estimation, the collapse of Al Shifa really isolates the North in an enormous way that really cannot be overstated. Anyway, that is what I want everyone to understand, is like, we are shifting gears now to a place where even this very difficult area, and I'm sure Sarah can speak to us trying to get to that area with food and such, it's becoming increasingly difficult.
Well, I mean, if you recall, Al Shifa was a massive PR coup. It has like a symbolic significance as, you know, the most prominent hospital in northern Gaza. If you recall the information campaign leading up to the original attack in Al Shifa Hospital, they prepped the public for like 2 weeks. You know, they had those CGI graphics of like exactly how the headquarters of Hamas room looked, and the tunnels with like dudes
and
with
the
AK-47s walking
the
around.
Arabic
Oh,
calendar.
this was even before they hit it. This was released in the public media on like CNN, on IDF channels, and none of those things actually existed. So they've been prepping this, and it was a big coup, because once they got away with Al Shifa Hospital, they could go ahead with assaulting every other hospital systematically in the Strip. So this one, it's just they're doubling down. A lot of it's about information stuff. So they're about to assault Rafah, it looks like, and they're not going to like clear it. They're just going to go cause a catastrophe for a little bit, and then say, total victory over Hamas. We can all go home, because it's like they're running out of money and troop morale is at an all-time low. So they're going for the symbolic victories.
And if you've seen anything on the Western media, I'm thinking right now about a specific Fox News report that was aired this past weekend that indicates in any way that these aid drops have gotten in any way to Al Shifa. That is an absolute bold-faced, complete and total lie. That is not true. That is completely inaccurate. They have had nothing for a very long time. And the healthcare professionals there, who are starving as well and fasting during Ramadan, have been donating their own blood multiple times a week in order to fill the need of the patients who are dying. Wow. This is beyond apocalyptic in terms of what these folks are dealing with. We are raising money in order for Dr. Abu-Dahab to evacuate his family. He refuses to leave. He believes this is his destiny in order to save his people. And as one of the remaining surgeons who's left north of Khan Yunis, I agree that his role there is incredibly important. And I'm sorry, I probably need to just pause a second. I'm getting a little...
That's okay. You pause. Let's take a minute. Asma, can you share a little bit how you have seen or heard from Palestinians and how this is impacting their mental health? I think, on a very obvious scale, it's impacting it in significant ways and detrimental, destructive ways. Can you give us a little more detail on kind of your insight on what's going on with Palestinians?
Yeah, I'll be quoting mental health professionals from Palestine. They said there is no one mentally well in Gaza. No one is mentally well. I can't imagine that. I've never been trained to deal with a population like that. Right. Especially the children. Every child in Gaza needs trauma therapy. Yeah. That's over 1 million children. And just the fact that all of this trauma is gonna be passed for at least 3 generations. We are extending the problem because America wants to, is sickening, and more sickening for me in my field. Most therapists are just silent. They're okay witnessing a genocide and not speaking about this on every level.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. And me being a counselor in training here in the West, like, it is insane the amount of trauma that has been incurred. That I cannot imagine what this does to children outside of the very physical manifestations that we have seen happening on a daily basis. There are children who are brought into our DMs that have been diagnosed with psychosomatic non-epileptic seizures or are epileptic and have an increase in seizures because we know that stress and trauma bring on those seizures and activate those seizures more heavily. What is I mean, in terms of helping these people cope, there's really not any kind of resources available because it's all been taken out, it's all been blown to pieces in terms of how helping these children at the very least. How are parents able to excuse me, manage helping these kids settle at least a little bit to decrease the impact that it may have physically upon them?
Well, the parents need to be also in a good place, and no parent is in a good place. They try with the very little they have. I saw an initiative the other day. They created a tent for mental health support for children. If you follow artist Shaima, I'll tag her name after we finish. She's been painting on rubble, on faces, and she's been helping. This is one initiative, and I don't know how many people she reached, maybe a couple of hundred, but still it's something. They're creating hope from nothing, literally nothing. Parents, most of them are out of resources. Like I've been contacted by friends, like my school friends, people I grew up with, got married in the West Bank and in Palestine. They would ask me, what can we do to regulate our children? And I would tell them, try to keep the meals regular. I can't give this advice even in Gaza. They're not even eating.
Right.
Yeah, there's no regularity is very important for a child to feel safety. And they don't have that. They don't even have that one anchor of safety. So they do with whatever they have. Most people are reverting back to religion, which is a big factor, being, just surrendering to God. This, as you said, Dr. Abu Warda said, this is his fate. We believe that God has decided things for us. There are things we cannot change. And this is called, what is it called? Oh my God, I did a reel about it. It's called, I forgot. It's something.
No worries.
No, I'll remember later. It's when you just give up that you cannot change something that cannot be changed. And that gives peace to people. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know Dr. Awadda specifically, he has a young daughter who's 2, and then he's also sheltering with 4 other children who are under the age of 10.
Wow.
And, one of the recurring themes is like, airstrikes at night that I think, and Greg, you could probably speak to this. The drones, the noise of the drones, the airstrikes at night, even when they're not hitting like actual targets, it's all meant it's all meant to torture people. It's meant to terrorize their psyches. Yeah, please. And these children are, whenever I speak to Abdul-Wahab in the middle of the night, or his night, and he's telling me that the children can't settle and they can't sleep, and then they go into the next day not being able to sleep and not having enough nutritional calories and not, and the other day there was an airstrike and she dove out of the way under a bed even though it was far away, and she broke her little hand. And they have nothing, and he managed to like buy her a little toy to try to like ease some of her emotional pain. But I'm only amplifying his voice. I want to make it very clear that I am a white person in the United States and I do not speak for this man, but I am amplifying his voice here and saying that he feels utterly helpless to protect this child he's worked so hard to have and bring into the world and dig a place for himself and his family. It's just,
Well,
yeah.
no, it's just one important point was, I mean, it's all a terror campaign, right? Because even the 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs that they're dropping only have an unclassified penetration range of 6 feet of concrete. The actual classified ones more, but you can't even collapse the tunnels that they made specifically to not be collapsed by those bombs. So it's very clear that Hamas is not the target, that it's the actual civilian population. And another point is, if I have tinnitus from those bombs, the kids definitely will. So Yeah, that's going to be a whole thing. That's where you hear ringing in your ears in complete silence. You can't sleep like ever again. So without like white noise machines and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, that's and one other point. Not that I really care at all, but there's going to be a lot of when you said everybody was being affected in Gaza, it's like, oh, the soldiers there too. Yeah, they're going home. There have been like serious incidents of just like public shootings in Tel Aviv and Jaffa, just like at a restaurant, like a week back from Gaza, just like opening up. So, oh, this has a lot of consequences too. And if you thought American veteran suicide rates were bad, it could be a whole lot worse.
Right.
So that's one other aspect. There's it doesn't seem like there's going to be any breaks anytime soon.
No.
There may be like a lot of political pushback and flack if they assault Rafah tomorrow, which I guess it would be like tomorrow or Tuesday, or sorry, Wednesday, if it does happen. But yeah, this thing's just going to continue for a little bit while
We,
longer, at
right.
least.
And I think I've seen a couple questions about desensitization that Americans have been experiencing. Do you think that there is a specific tactic that is being utilized that you can point to help people kind of break through that propaganda and that bullshit that they've been fed about what is actually going on? Because I think last night, for example, getting on Instagram to try and find any information or news or TikTok or anywhere, it was impossible unless I found a person through a person through a person to see what was actually going on. So we're not only just addressing the suppression element in the strategy of removing it, but how is desensitization occurring right now, and how can we stop that as a person to continue to be engaged with what we are seeing and spread the truth about what we are seeing and what Palestinians are going through and the horrors that they've been exposed to.
I think there's an important distinction between like indifference and or desensitization and dehumanization. For me, like I'm probably pretty desensitized to all this stuff just based off my own personal experience. But that doesn't mean I'm like just accepting it. So there, like, yeah, you
Sure.
can get used to seeing these images. Doesn't mean you're going to stop caring. The big problem is dehumanization because we still in America have a lot of post 9/11 propaganda, and there's this insidious idea that it takes a village. The kids are going to be terrorists anyways, and no one will. Most people will probably not be stupid enough to say that out loud, but it's there. It exists within the cognitive space of a lot
Right.
of American citizens, and it's not that they're desensitized, it's just they don't care. It's the Middle East. They've been killing each other for millennia, which isn't true, but that's what they think is the history, and
Right.
they'll continue to do so. So a lot of people just choose to see it as hopeless and not care. And like, we have to remind ourselves that just because we're invested in this, and it's like a everyday thing
Exactly.
constantly, most people are just like, oh, it's another generic overseas war.
Right.
Oh, well. So
And
I think it's
if we're not,
no.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I'm totally fine with desensitization. I actually am kind of happy I am at this point. But there's a difference between that and
Right.
dehumanization and indifference.
Right. Nicole?
Yeah, I think it really can't be overstated how we as Americans have been brainwashed into Islamophobia. That's when I started my activism, was in the effort to prevent the Iraq War, in an effort to prevent the entrance into Afghanistan. And we were 9/11, for whatever you feel about it, was weaponized against Americans in order to get them to co-sign onto the destruction they were about to bring all over the world. And to tie back into the abandoned Biden movement, don't buy this anymore. Like, it's all just a lie. It's all a lie to get you to do what they say, to be so afraid of the alternative to Biden that you'll get so scared and you'll rush over and you'll vote for him because you don't want that kind of anarchy here. But my personal opinion, and again, I don't speak for the 4 people here, but my personal opinion is that we can no longer export the kind of terror that we create in the world, and that if what comes down the line into the United States of America is to feel some of the anxiety and the anger and the uncertainty that we have exported everywhere, then so be it. That sounds like someone else's problem. Sorry, that was real heavy. Sorry.
No, I mean,
Heavy
when it comes to
conversations. Welcome.
when it comes to Biden, I know for a fact. I grew up in New England, in New York City, amongst the liberal, waspy elite. They're not. They're only going to care if Biden loses. They're only going to care
Yep.
about. They're not going to care unless their own, like, they feel like their own privileges and rights are being threatened. That's the only way they're going to care. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to look at that alternative and hear his voice for 4 years. But that's the only way people will get involved. Also, the Trump and Biden's border policy is the same. Roe v. Bodily autonomy has continued to be repealed systematically under a Democratic white executive branch, and a bunch of other, like, free speech, First Amendment stuff have been assailed during the Biden administration, trying to put political pressure on it to censor social media. So it's like we have a far right party, and then we have another far right party. So just by threatening us, it just kind of shows that democracy is not intensifying. So that's all I'd say about that.
Right. Asma, what
Um,
do you?
yeah, I wanted to add, this is a unique momentum to break away from the two-party system. We probably will not get, and I speak for myself, not for Abandon Biden, we will probably not get a third party this time, but this is one step closer to breaking that system. I'm investing my children's future, maybe not in my future. So someone needs to start this, and we can do it this year. Do not
Yes.
vote for genocidal politicians, period. So other politicians would think twice about committing genocide.
Exactly.
This is the top of any crime. There's no bigger crime than genocide.
Well, also, there is something that people in certain circles know. Like, I had a security clearance in Afghanistan, and Biden is notoriously racist. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's also a major factor in this. He just doesn't care, and perhaps he's also probably like a death cult Zionist too. It seems so.
And look,
Points that way.
just for accessibility purposes, I think it's really important. Like, let me just go ahead and put myself on blast here. I voted for Joe Biden. Do you know what I mean? I weren't happy about it. I was not happy about it at all. I did it because I wanted to save lives from COVID. That's the facts. I did it. So I want people to know, like, we get it. I'm not speaking for anyone here, but I did that. And if things hadn't turned and shifted, in October, I'm not even sure I would not have done it again. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, it's okay. It's okay to feel like you've been hoodwinked. You've been hoodwinked. And it's okay to feel rage and anger, and it's okay to step away from what is comfortable.
Yeah.
White settler colonialism is what we've all been indoctrinated to love and to want to cling to. It's okay to face that with a very real, truthful lens, I think. And in terms of the desensitization and the dehumanization of people, I think I'm certain that no one's excited about looking at exploded children on their Instagram all day, every day. My feed disgusts me, but I will not stop. Do you know what I'm saying? And the reason is because I sit in my home, I sleep at night. You know what I mean? I have food in my refrigerator, and I can't think of a greater obligation I have as a person who's participated unwillingly with my tax dollars in this to, continue to, at minimum, just amplify the voices that are there looking for amplification.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it time we get a little bit of say in where our tax money goes?
Girl.
Right?
Just
It's about
a little bit.
time.
Girl.
So I like that there's been more comments in here. I'm just facilitating all of this, I feel, which is fine. It's great because we need to talk about these things. Like, what are our third party options? What, other than writing undecided on our ballot, what are some other ways that we can make a sign through our vote that we're done with this bullshit democracy?
I mean, it really doesn't matter too much, like, who you vote for a third party. They're not going to win in this election.
Right.
But so just vote for a third party, and then they'll get the data, and they'll be like, what we're doing in 4 years might not be sustainable. So I'm just gonna pick someone who seems like the most reasonable. I don't know who it is, but the performative effect is they're not going to win anyways. But at least you can make your voice heard. So.
Right. Asma, why don't you touch on that in terms of where did you
I can't
okay now?
hear you anymore. Yes.
Okay, sorry. My alarm went off, and that's probably why. I was just asking, were you able to hear the whole question before I'm like, hey, answer this?
No.
Okay.
My daughter interrupted. She has a Ramadan camp, and I had to look. And yeah.
No worries. So we were talking about third-party options. How do we continue to make moves through our votes, and what does that look like? Knowing that whoever we vote for, even if it's for a third-party person or writing undecided, isn't going to make a change in who's going to be president next. What are some ways people can continue to make those waves and make that noise and make their voices heard and stand up for what they actually believe in and try and take some action?
Okay. I think it's so important to invest in doing research in voting on all levels, especially locally. We need to change who's the governor, who are, in every level of government. So start doing that research, see what parties or who those people belong to. Like I've met, and I'm not endorsing anyone, but I've met really amazing people in the Green Party. And I was like, why did I never hear more about you? Like,
Right.
I did hear about the Green Party, not too much. And now I'm meeting people like inside of it, and they were like, we've always been for Palestine, and I never knew that.
Right.
So definitely, yeah, I need to do more research. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. One way that your vote actually still matters is actually to become more involved in local elections, not just congressmen or senators, but like mayors, judges, sheriffs. What are their political positions? Because like most people don't even mess with political like local elections. So that's actually where a semblance of democracy still exists. So that I will say that like in your own area you can organize for that, and it will make a difference. It's not going to be as great as like having a non-genocidal imperialist president, but it is something.
Right. Nicole,
I think it's also important to, I'm sorry. I think it's also important to remember that, what Greg's saying about you're trying to send a message, right? And so there are certainly more third-party candidates who are pulling, maybe ahead is a strong word, but like have a couple of percentage points. But the point is this, is like if one third party candidate can get 3% of the general electorate, so the popular vote, there are federal funds that will then be diverted from the two-party system to that party. It's a little bit sticky when you get, first of all, it is really, really important for each person to research their local election rules and their local elections. So it is, if anyone tries to tell you these giant sweeping statements about vote this way federally, blah, 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 they are missing the nuance about how each election is so very different. And even by county and district, how you vote, what you're able to do changes dramatically. I do want, an example to piggyback on what Greg's saying is, I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. My mayor is deep in ties with folks who are Zionists. And financially, again, has anybody here ever heard of Chattanooga, Tennessee before I started talking? Anyway, my mayor is, it's deep. I mean, so deep. Since October, he has done nothing to speak about what's going on except go to these film festivals that are like very Zio film festivals. And then I was not aware of this till a few months ago. The police chief in my town, Celeste Murphy, was trained by the IOF in Israel, and that is another thing that is happening everywhere. Research the cop cities that are coming to your town. These, we have trained United States police officers with IOF techniques. Is there anything you're seeing on Instagram that makes you think that that's something you want to bring here? Like they've got it going on? Absolutely not. We've got enough police problems as it is right now. I live in a city that has a very long tradition of absolute abject racism. And I refuse to sit silently while that continues on my watch. I don't care who it is against. So research your town, find out where these people are getting their money. Go to opensecrets.com, find out where they're getting their money, and tell them that you know where they're getting their money. You may also recognize my representative, Chuck Fleischman. He was recently published all over Code Pink because he's a complete and total douche. And so these are people that people have been trying to unseat for a very long time. Now people are paying attention to where their money comes from and how they are not working for you. They are working for themselves. They are working for people who are literally trying to destroy other humans. Do not be fooled. Sorry, very intense again.
No, you're fine. I want to address a comment really quick from Cancel the USA, who has asked us to involve the commenters a little bit more here in the discussion. So a lot of the questions that we're answering have been from a collective of comments of people making comments about third-party voting. What does that look like, among a couple of other things. So we're involving the commenters here. So if there's something, Cancel the USA, you specifically have to ask, you're welcome to share that in the comments with us. We have the four of us here, and that's kind of the format that we're going to stick with right now. But we're happy to include you in the conversation through the comments. I noticed that you said your father survived a genocide. Please share more about that. We're happy to listen and talk more about that as well.
Someone just said San Antonio, which is like an hour south of me, has Tel Aviv as its sister city. Yeah, no. Chattanooga's bad, but Texas is all full of these guys. Greg Abbott takes so much money, and he also, if you don't know, he's the governor of Texas. He also loves throwing razor wire in the Rio Grande, so like people crossing the border get stuck on it and drown. But of course he takes a lobbying money from them. But yeah, so it's all entrenched in the country, but local elections are where you can still make it. And if you can F with the money, that's what they're really about.
Yep.
So
don't let them get
master.
away with it. Do you know what I mean? Just don't let the whole thing is like, look, American politics are very frustrating. No one is suggesting otherwise, right? But the point is they want you to be frustrated. They want to complicate election law. They want to complicate how to find where the money goes. It is an absolute tactic. Look at the endless amount of gerrymandering that has happened throughout this country for decades. And despite all this efforts to try to stop gerrymandering, most districts are completely rigged for a system of one person or another. And so, like I said, go to Open Secrets, like research these people, talk to them on X, talk to them on Instagram, make sure that they know you are watching them. I've worked in political campaigns. I used to be a Democratic elector. Please don't hate me. I've worked in the Democratic Party. I've worked on Senate campaigns, and I guarantee that they care. They absolutely care. You may think that it's not making a difference. That is not true. For one thing specifically is the people who run these campaigns are not the people who will be elected. They're people like you and me. They're college kids who are disgusted with what is going on. And if enough people jump off the campaign, they can't get elected anyway. So it's not just about track the money. It's not just about make your voice heard. It's also about like put pressure, communal pressure on people not to be complicit and not to dehumanize other people.
Asma, can you share more about some of the alternative party options that you think have been really great, and elaborate a little bit more on who I know that are pro-Palestinian, or where we can find those resources?
I didn't do the research yet, but I would suggest everyone follows Abandon Biden on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and Twitter, on X. Abandon Biden didn't decide yet on who we should support, but stay tuned. If you want to support this movement, they will announce someone they want to support. But so far, yeah, we don't know who.
Right. I think, and just a quick search here to address those who are asking, if you go to gp.org/2024_candidates, you'll find an entire list of other candidates that are Green Party across the country. I live here in Arizona, and I already see Cody Hanna, who is a young working class LGBTQIA activist, who would be a great addition to Arizona's government that has been just utter trash for such a long time. and is starting to be a little more purple, which is nice. Being the person that I am living in this historically red state. You know, I really think that when it comes to naming the candidates and everything, like Google is available. There's a lot of options to find and search these individuals, and following the Abandoned Biden campaign on Instagram is a really, really great, important step that I recommend each of you take. If you're not interested in doing that, then, you know, there's more research that we can all do collectively together.
You
There's
shouldn't be
also been
looking
people
for us to
naming
tell
people in the
you.
comments too.
Well, here's the thing. It's like don't jump into an IG live and ask us who we want you to vote for. I guess what I'm saying is like that's part of the flipping problem. Is like do not do your own research. You know, one of the things that I think is really important to continuously call out and remember is like the Palestinian population, the Gazan population is an incredibly educated population, and these Palestinian folks, they don't have the choice to not know. You know, even like young children have a complex understanding of the political history in their area, and also the current political realism that they have to live with. It is your job to become educated. It is your job to seek out, you know, whatever. Stop looking for someone to tell you who to vote for. That is part of the problem, because it's easy to get it's easy to get celebrities. You just pay them. It's easy to get people who can grab a lot of people at once. The point is you become the most powerful when you are the most educated and the most active. So if you're sick of this system, get educated. I see also in the comments a lot of things talking about like this will mean Trump is president, this will mean Trump is president, blah 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 blah. Again, what you're describing here is not democracy. Vote for this one guy or this one other guy will blow up our country. Like that's insane. That's insane. What Asma said is absolutely true. There are no more severe crimes than genocide. That is the tippy tip top of the one.
Oh, I just wanted to say one last thing before I have to hop off.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
I get asked like, who am I voting for? What are we doing? I was like, I'm really cautious about that, about deciding and putting it out there. Here's why: leftist movements always break down because of fragmenting ideologies. Like the barrier for entry right now is like, are you against child slaughter? If the answer is yes, welcome aboard. I don't
Right.
care if you're a flat earther. We probably won't ever have to discuss that, you know.
Right.
But I do not want us to like just descend into like nitpicking about who someone is voting for in third party. That will only be self-destructive. So I'm just going to do my thing and not talk about it. But I'm not voting for Biden. That's all I'll say. But beyond that, I'm always cautious about leftist movements getting fragmenting, because they always do this. We always destroy ourselves.
Right.
So that's why I do not want to get into that specific conversation. Vote locally, do your own research. I'm not going to tell anyone who I'm voting for. Beyond it's not going to be Biden or Trump.
Right.
So,
So
yeah. Sorry guys, I've got a thing now, but
Thank you.
appreciate you having me on.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much for
much
joining.
for having
Really
me.
appreciate
Please,
you.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Talk later.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. So kind of getting back to what's going on in the North and how that's going to be impacting, just to kind of round out everyone's understanding who's here. We initially spoke about how this kind of changes the landscape of what might be happening, and it just makes the fact that the invasion in Rafah is going to be imminent, and it will happen. It's not a matter of when, it's a matter of like how soon is this going to occur, and what is the timeline we're living on here in order to evacuate people, to get aid as much as possible into Rafah or Deir al-Balah or wherever we can get that in. So quickly, I want to just remind everybody that Project Watermelon receives financial aid from our GoFundMe, and we send it either to our evacuations teams or we send it directly into Gaza to either individuals who are in dire need, or we send it to groups who provide cash envelopes to people or support a food kitchen or support food parcels. And the more that you are able to donate to the Project Watermelon link in our bio that is titled Buy Baby Formula and Food Parcels right now, the more you're able to donate through there, the quicker we can get it and get it into Gaza, because that is literally the initiative right now. We have no idea if anyone is going to be able to receive financial aid from us after an assault happens and people are moved north. We have absolutely no idea. So the sooner we can get donations in, the sooner we can send it to whoever we are sending our distributors to, which we can share at another point in time. But that is important. Whoever you're donating to, doesn't even have to be us. It can be whoever you are donating money to. Send them that money. Send them as much as you can. Send them the amount that you would send them in a year. Donate that today so that we, as a collective of mutual aid people out in the ether of the universe, can get that to the people. Because as we've talked about, there are people who are literally starving. There are people who are dying of starvation. There are people who are injured and sick and can't move or do anything to go get what they need. So if you want to take some action that doesn't have anything to do with us telling you who we think you should vote for, go donate your money. Take out whatever money you feel is ethical and responsible for you as a person and your family, and give it to the people who need it now.
Yes, absolutely. And think about all the ways that you can rearrange your financial life in order to do that. There are an example of this is like you might want to check in to see how your 401k is being invested and what defense contractors are currently getting your money. There's a lot of ways that your money is being used to hurt other people. And I think it's, again, very important for people to become as informed as they can about where their money goes. And so for me, and again, I'm not anyone special. I'm just a white lady in Tennessee. I in October, I reorganized my financial life and I decided like what companies can I do without supporting, and also like what types of things do I no longer want my money to be going to, and what kinds of things can I do without in order to take my money and try to counteract what has also been taken from me by my government, and put it where it's supposed to be. Getting people baby formula. Their babies can't eat any of the food that is available to them. They have to have formula. A starving mother cannot breastfeed. That's not how it works, man. And so we have the ability to touch lives, and we are touching lives every single day. And if you will entrust us with and us as being Project Watermelon, with your contributions, we are advertising how we are touching lives. We are amplifying Palestinian voices. We are trying as much as we can to provide agency for people who are there, and to have agency over their own financial lives.
That I think financial agency is kind of a really important thing here, because Palestinians have no agency over their lives, and I'm not about to be the person to speak on that. Asma, I know this live has been like really off the cuff and super like, let's go now. So yeah. I apologize that none of us have been able to prepare ahead of time, but off the top of your head, from your experience and your perspective, how can we help provide some semblance of agency into these people's lives? Because just from a trauma and mental health perspective, not having agency over or any kind of semblance of control over your own life or being able to do anything is just another mark on the pole of things that impact your mental health on a disastrous level.
Well, amplifying Palestinian voices would be the first thing. And you are doing it, Nicole is doing it, but most people are not. Like most of my neighbors, most of my friends are not speaking about Palestine, and it dehumanizes Palestinians. If it doesn't take a genocide to speak up for them, what does it take for those people? I don't know. Try to amplify their voices, donate to trustworthy agencies. we will have a lot of work in the future once there's a ceasefire and we can rebuild. But for now, that's all I can suggest. Yeah. I had a question before I forget. Can I ask Nicole? What's the latest update from Dr. Abdul-Wahab Abu Warda? What did he tell you about what happened last night?
Yeah. Yes. So, okay. So the hospital, I'm going to be, yeah. So the hospital was overtaken by ground troops,
Mm-hmm.
about 3:34 a.m. And there were tanks out in the front area of Al Shifa is sort of like a U. Well, it used to be sort of like a U, and so there's kind of there's a big space in the center, and it just so happens to be the space where they've been keeping most of the bodies. And the IOF came in with bulldozers and tanks and sort of cut off the front of the hospital. Some people were able to like get out. My understanding is that several folks from the ER department, several of the journalists who have been stationed at Al Shifa were apprehended, and also some of the Palestinian police who are also there. They were apprehended by the IOF. The information that I've gotten is that those people, at least the ones that Dr. Abdul Wahab Abdwarza has direct connection with, have all been since been released. He and his family are in an because this is very heavy. I do want to share some amazingly and blessed news. You know, thanks to one of our friends who is contributing to things on the ground, we were able to get his family lamb and rice and vegetables for their iftar today, and it was, I'm just covered in chills because especially since what just happened at Al Shifa, it's amazing that that's even been able to happen. And so they are all together. They are sheltering with a very large group of people who have come out of the hospital. To my understanding, the patients who were in, they only had 5 ICU beds. And so the patients who are in ICU beds are currently still in the hospital and being monitored by the IOF.
Sure.
Mm. Um, the latest things that I have gotten out of other folks that I know that are in the north are, the hospital has functionally, physically been bombarded multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of that, a lot of the hospital is just completely unusable. It's just rubble now. The hospital that is still remaining runs entirely on fuel and generators, and so as the fuel has waned, as most people know, until the other day, there had been no trucks deliveries at all in months to the north. And so they had like isolated just this one small pocket of the hospital that they could keep running. And Dr. Abu Warda, he does surgeries for 8, 12, sometimes 20 hours a day. He has shared with me some of the things that they are providing for folks at the hospital to break their fast. And it's harrowing to say the least, just like a cup of edible grass and herbs, like in seawater. That's another thing, is that the hospital has not had access to fresh, clean water in months. And in the last few months, when they got completely cut off, the north was completely cut off. They use seawater to disinfect. They use seawater to clean. That's all they have available, seawater.
Sorry, I was trying to add, there's a couple people in here that I know are in Gaza.
I see a dude right here who's saying they have clean water. No, they don't. So I see you. No, they don't.
Let's see. Trying to accept a person in to come share what's going on. Yes. So if you are Palestinian who's watching this and you happen to be in Gaza, or you have family that's in the north and has been experiencing the new hell that has been unleashed in the last 24 hours, please ask to join, because Arham Shahid, I have not been able to add you for some reason. I go to type in your name and it just does not pull up. So if you
I'm good. We don't need. Are you paying attention to those comments?
a little bit?
Yeah, don't.
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. So they don't have water. The IDF soldiers happily cut the supply. Yeah, there's been no clean drinking. There is no clean drinking water anywhere. There's
Save
none.
rainwater. Yeah, there's not. That's it's. First of all, I think it's important here that since this water thing is now becoming a whole thing, so it has been illegal for, it is one of the 65 laws that exist in Israel that Palestinian people in the West Bank and in Gaza are not allowed to collect rainwater. That is illegal. They cannot collect the water that comes out of the sky. The Israeli government collects that water and then sells it back to Gaza. Sells it back at a premium to Gaza. They control 100% of the fresh water that goes into Gaza. Since this whole onslaught, since the siege has been happening, it's just people getting rainwater, and occasionally water tanker trucks are allowed through the border, but we know how all those trucks, how that's happening. Just recently we were able, another person that we know was able to get a water tanker truck into the north, but that is very rare. And no, in no way enough for a population of 500,000 to 700,000 people who are stranded in the north right now. It's just not enough at all.
Right. And I think there's a woman in the West Bank who did a very interesting and educational video on what exactly happens to the water.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall what her user handle is or her name, but she's living in the West Bank and goes through and shows you on top of the roofs the water system that they have. Like, water should be free. Water is a human right. And yet we have many countries across the world who are doing exactly what Israel has been doing to water. And Israel will continue to do these things until someone forces the repercussions of their actions upon them. And they have to endure those consequences, whether they be political or otherwise. The issue is that there's no clean water, and when you donate money to organizations who have been providing tankers or clean water in, please donate to those places. I think we've tagged Angie's name in the form below. You donate to Angie can, by miracle of God, provide clean water. Is it enough? No. Should there be enough water? 100%. But we are literally doing what we can to get that clean water in, to get food delivered and prepared for people in the ways that we can. It's not, it's literally Israel controlling every single element of what is allowed in, and that is close to nothing. And the aid drops that come in, they're killing more people than they are helping.
Mm-hmm.
And the aid drops themselves, they don't provide enough food. We can look at Prince Kota's Instagram post from that was in his stories, and that We Are the Peace and several other people have reposted. He shows you exactly what comes in these aid drops. And that is not enough nutrition for an individual person for the 5 or 6 days it's supposed to last.
And it's a lot of it is dehydrating food. I've seen multiple, one veteran and someone else show that it has really salty biscuits, and you want to eat that, you need water, so it's gonna dehydrate. Yeah, I don't know what kind of psychopath would aid drop food that would make you more thirsty.
Right.
I mean, not only that, an incredible, like the first airdrop that came in, that was the U.S. sponsored airdrop. What was dropped was 80% rotten, expired food. Let's also talk about the stages of famine. You cannot come back from the second stage of famine on carbohydrates alone. It is not possible. MREs are very carbohydrate rich. They do not contain a lot of protein. Occasionally they'll have some nuts or whatever, or maybe some tofu, blah, blah, blah. People that are in this second stage of famine require protein. They require intravenous saline. They require this in order to recover at all. Otherwise, that food is useless. They cannot process it. Their body is in a state of ketosis that requires protein.
Yes.
And so that's something getting fresher foods into people. And there's, and Sarah, you can speak to the folks that we have been, the Afas, I believe, who used to have a family garden. And I think it's really important to remember there were lots of greenhouses and farms in Gaza because they are cut off from the rest of Israel.
Yeah.
And so there's a blockade, and so that's how they were getting food. The Gaza diet has been employed by the Israelis for a very long time, which is they only let a certain amount of food that can provide X amount of caloric intake.
Yeah.
And so now what we're taught, and so the people there have usefully created lots of greenhouses, lots of places to have fresh food, and they were targeted first. Hamas is not under a friggin' farm. That's not how farms work.
And one of the things that has been coming up since St. Patrick's Day has been the fact that there are families in Gaza who are eating